In this video, I'm going to talk about a pretty large topic, packaging code. There's probably a number of different ways to describe what I'm talking about here. Basically, I want to greatly simplify this initial pass at this topic matter, asking what happens whenever I have two projects that my company is working on, okay? And they both need to share the same code. Suppose that I have a class that needs to be shared between two projects. Can I reuse that class for both of those projects? I guess I could just simply copy and paste the code and make sure that I get the representation of that class in both projects. But what happens if I have some business rule changes that affect that code? Now I have to make changes in two projects and hope that I've made it a consistent change between the two. Otherwise, the way that a discount is calculated or tax is calculated, it might be different between the two. And now I've got the impossible task of debugging where I gone wrong as I'm looking through the data and seeing inconsistencies between how records are being written into the database, for an example, okay? So it might make more sense in that situation to extract that code out into its own class library project, as I'll demonstrate here in just a moment, and then share that library of code between those two projects. So the project would then get compiled into its own assembly, its own DLL file, and then it would get copied and referenced by each of the projects. When I have to make a change, I make it in one place, I recompile the code, and I copy the assembly, the DLL file, back to both of the bin directories of the two applications that need that code, okay? So that's what I want to demonstrate in this video. And again, this is the first step of a much larger discussion of why would you even want to package code, or the notion of layering code and architecting applications. You know, we could discuss strategies on how to design class libraries. It's really the first step towards learning also about service orientation and then moving from there on to the Windows Communication Foundation and much more. But again, for now, baby steps. We want to keep this discussion simple. We'll get to all those advanced topics in due time. All right, so what I want to do is start off and demonstrate the whole thing from scratch. I'm going to start by creating a file, new project, and I'm going to call this console application, we're going to call this packaging code. And I'm going to click OK. All right, so the very first thing I want to do is go up to this solution file, and remember that the solution is a container for multiple projects. Up to this point, we've only had one project per solution in the previous 10 days. But now what I want to do is right-click and select Add New Project. Go ahead and save the existing project. Yes, 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 yes. All right, there we go. Now what I want to do in the Add New Project dialog is select Class Library, and here I'm going to call this, I'll just keep it simple, My Library. Okay, and I'm going to click OK. And so now you can see there are two projects in my solution. I'm going to add a third project here soon. So as you can see, I get a default class1.cs here, and it's already opened up in my main area. And you know, instead of taking the time to type all this code out, I'm just going to pause the recording of this video, and I'm going to more fully flesh out this example so that you can see it. All right, so I'm going to pause right now. Okay, so I've been typing for just a moment or two here. You can see now in my class 1 in this new My Library project, I have two classes defined, one called Automobile, and it just has a number of properties. A class called Automobile Service that has methods, and then I have this enumeration called condition enumeration, mint, good, fair, bad, totaled. All right, and I use that to declare one of my properties here, this condition property. So an automobile has a make, model, and a year. It also is a condition, and then we're going to be able to pass an instance of that automobile class to this determine value method in my automobile service. I may have other additional public methods that are available as well. And then I do some super secret formula here to determine the actual value of a car. In this case, I'm just going to hard code the value to $5,000, okay? And then I'll return that out to the client. So one last thing, let me do this. I'm going to rename this file from class 1 to automobile. All right, then I'm going to just right click and select build to build that project. And I'm going to close this down. Now I'm going to come back to my console application, and here I'm in my static void main where we've been working pretty much all 10 days. And here what I want to do is reference the code that's in my automobile.cs in my library. Now to do that, I'm going to have to create a reference to this assembly, to this other project. Now, if you'll see, we open up references, and there's already references to other assemblies that are part of the .NET framework class library, like system.data, system.data, dataset extensions, XML, XML link. Some of these we have using statements to pull them in. These are all created by default whenever we create a new console application. This is Microsoft's best guess at the major namespaces that you're going to need whenever you're building a new project. You could remove some of these references if you know you're not going to use them. They'll get removed automatically by the compiler whenever you go to compile an application. Those assemblies won't get copied over whenever you go to, if you don't actually reference them in your code in some meaningful way. Okay, but what we need to do is add a reference from this project to this assembly that we've created up here. So what I'm going to do is just right click and select add reference from the context menu, and you can see from here I can choose an existing .NET assembly to include in some assembly that has a subset of all of the classes in the .NET Framework class library. I can choose a COM object, which is something that was a 10-year-old technology that previous versions of the Microsoft development platform used to use. COM isn't used anymore, or in limited circumstances to support older technologies. But what we want to do is go to projects, and you can see it has some knowledge of the other projects in our solution, and it recognizes my library as the type of project that would produce an assembly that we can reference. Okay, so I'm going to click OK to that, and now it creates a reference to my library. So if I want to create a new instance of the automobile class, then I might start off doing something like this. Automobile, and IntelliSense knows nothing about it. Of course, I have to spell it correctly. Maybe that would help. Automobile. And it doesn't know anything about it still, but notice that there's that little blue caret underneath the A in automobile telling me that I could use the control period technique to add the using statement, and it'll add that namespace of my library to my collection of using statements here above. And now you can see it recognizes automobile class, and I can use it. So automobile auto equals new automobile, right? And so we can start setting the properties of automobile. So auto dot make equals Dodge, auto dot model equals Dart. All right. Auto dot year equals 1979. Auto dot condition, it knows the enumeration, or should know the enumeration, and it does. Condition enumeration, I can just hit bad or fair. We'll go fair on that one. And now what I can do is create a new instance of the automobile service. And notice that when I created this, I separated out domain style objects from objects or classes that know how to act on those domains, those entities, I guess you could call them. So I separated out classes with properties from classes with methods. We'll talk about that more later. So now I want to create automobile service. So auto service equals new automobile service. And I'm going to go double value equals auto service, and then I'm going to call determine value and pass in an instance of auto, and then I'm going to do console dot write line value dot to string, and we would expect to see the number 5,000, right? And then we'll just do this so we can actually see what we're working with here. Read line, great. right, so let's run the application. Okay, so we've gone a long way around to do something that's fairly innocuous, like write the number 5000 to screen. But that's not the point of this. The point is the layering and the separation of the code. We took business rules and entities and moved them into a common area that can be now referenced by multiple projects. To prove that point, let's go back to our solution. We're going to right click and select add a new project. We're going to add another console application called second project. Okay, and what I'm going to do is copy the code from the first project, and I'm going to paste it into the second project. It has no knowledge of automobile, so I'm going to right click the second project and select add reference, and I'm going to choose my library, not packaging code, but my library. And then I'm going to go here, right next to automobile, hit Control dot, and then select using my library, hit return key on the keyboard. Now all of the references to the my library namespace contained within the mylibrary.dll have been resolved, and I can run. And what I'll need to do at this point now, I'm going to close that up. I'm going to select second project again in the Solution Explorer. I'm going to right click it and select set as startup project. So that means when I hit the start debugging button, this is the project that starts up. It will ignore this packaging code project and will largely ignore my library, except for the fact that I'm actually utilizing my library. So it will execute it, but just not directly. Similar to what we just did. Okay, so let's run the application now, and we get the same number. Just to prove that we're working in this project, I'm going to put a breakpoint in the second project, program.cs, and run the application, and it should hit that breakpoint, and it does. So that proves that we're working with this version of the project, not this version of the project. Okay, all right, so you might be conceptually wondering, well, what did this really accomplish? Again, I want to emphasize now, if I need to make a change, here and change my super secret formula, I change it in one place. I'm going to recompile this application. I'm going to rerun second project now. I'm going to go ahead and run this, and now the change has been propagated, and all I did was change the code in one place, and now it's effectively changed in every spot where that code is utilized. All right, and so that is the first baby step to understanding how to architect enterprise applications, because a lot of it is understanding where to put the code. The business rules will often be put into one package, one assembly, one DLL, one or more projects. Then code that handles another aspect of the application will be collected together and put into another package, another assembly, another DLL, and so on. And we will utilize those services across one or more projects, whether it's a web application using those assemblies, a Silverlight application using those assemblies, a Windows Presentation Foundation project using those assemblies, or a service application that runs behind the scenes all the time to do some sort of nightly cleanup process of the data. It might use some features of those assemblies as well. All right, so hopefully that didn't blow you away too much. Just understand the basic concept. You can extract code out, put it in one spot, and it can be referenced by multiple projects. You have to create references to that assembly in order to utilize it within your application. It's as easy as that for now. We'll tack on some complexity then in a future series. All right, so we've finished day 10, and I'm pretty sure we've finished this Core 1 video series on Visual C# 2010 Express Edition, featuring that tool and the C# programming language, Link, the entity framework, SQL Server. Man, we talked about a lot of stuff. All right, there will be a homework assignment for today, and then that'll be it. And you can move on, and we'll have some suggestions on where you go from here. But congratulations, if you made it this far, you are far on your way to mastering C# and building real applications in .NET. Congratulations. We'll see you in the next video.